Alright, so the next thing I'm going to work on is removing the carburetor from the gas tank. So this is an old Briggs Pulsar Jet carburetor. Um, and once I get it removed, then we'll take a look at what the gas tank looks like. So we looked in there before. The gas tank is actually not too bad. There's a little bit of surface rust on the inside. I don't know if you can see that, but oh, there you go. You get a little bit maybe. A little bit of surface rust. I'm going to do something, I've never done it before, but I'm going to soak the gas tank in vinegar for a couple of days and see if it cleans it all up. Alright, so I also, before I put it in the vinegar, I wanted to kind of get a before shot of what the rust on the outside looks like as well. And then I also tried to peel off the gasket. It partially came off. There's still a little bit left. I'm hoping that the soap will help me get some of that off as well. Alright, so I got 3 gallons of vinegar from my local BJ's. And I've got a 5-gallon bucket, and I've got my can, my gas tank that I'm going to fill. So I'm going to fill this up and submerge the gas tank, and then we're going to let it sit for however many days it takes. Alright, so I'm going to fill this up as much as I can. The gas tank was empty and dry before I got started. Whoa, baby. Alright. Then I'm going to put it inside the bucket, and then I'm going to basically add more vinegar and try and submerge it. Can't see it, but I'm going to add it. Alright, so I've got the gas tank submerged in the vinegar. I may add some bolts that are rusty as well to it as time goes on. But we're going to let this sit. Maybe I'll check on it on a daily basis and see the status of it.
So the solution that I'm using here to clean the engine parts is hot tap water and Dawn dish soap. I'm using like a stiff nylon brush, a toothbrush. I'm also using a brass brush. The parts are pretty greasy, and so I definitely added more dish soap as I went on, and I ended up putting the dish soap directly onto the brush and then using that to scrub the area. I think in the future I would probably spend more time trying to wipe off as much as I could with a rag to get the grease off first before I cleaned the parts. Some of the parts were pretty tough or caked on, and so I did some scraping, maybe with a screwdriver, carefully to get that off. And I also used a green Scotch-Brite. Lastly, on the head where there was some caked on carbon, I scraped a good amount of it off with a screwdriver carefully, and then I used PB Blaster and a scrub brush, like a toothbrush, to kind of get the rest of it off. It didn't get it perfect like a hot tank or anything like that, but it came out pretty good enough for what I'm doing here.
Alright, so for final kind of like cleaning the cylinder and kind of putting a little coating on it so it doesn't corrode until I'm ready to use it. I'm actually using ATF. This is actually high quality Subaru HTF, but I had extra from some transmission job that I was working on a while back. So I'm going to use some ATF on a cloth here and just kind of wipe it down until it's clean. So second pass came out pretty clean. You can see there's still some caked on oil here, but I think that's gonna be all right. I'm not gonna go crazy over it. And then I'm gonna use the rag again just to kind of clean out the inside of it here. Alright, so that's the inside. And then I'm just going to kind of wipe down the outside a little bit just to see what else I can clean off of this thing. But it was pretty dirty. I'd love to get some more of this paint off, but we'll see. I think I'll probably just paint over it. Alright, so I think that's going to be pretty good. I'm going to work on the next piece. Alright, so I'm going to post up what the model number of the engine is. And so I bought the piston ring set. And so that is the piston ring set that I bought for this. So here are the rings. I'm going to put new rings in. Just going to lubricate them a little bit. Again, for this, I'm using ATF. I could use this engine assembly fluid, but I don't have any, so this is what I'm using. And I will probably do like an initial run, run the engine, flush out the oil, just to make sure any contaminants or anything like that are out of the engine for when I first build it. So when I assemble the rings, I'm clocking them so that they're not lined up with each other. So there's going to be a gap here, and I'm going to clock this one 33 degrees out, and I'm going to clock this one here so that the gaps are all not facing each other. Actually, maybe I'm lying. Maybe I'm going to try and put it this way. I don't have a tool for this, so I'm just going to try and wing it. Alright, we're going to try a new method. We'll try the zip tie method. Alright, I call that success. Alright, so I'm going to use the pick here to open this guy back up. Alright, I'm going to call that good.
I hope that you're enjoying this series as much as I am. If you like watching this kind of stuff, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you very much.
Still pliable, so I'm just gonna reuse it because I am missing the other gasket for this side. So this is what I've got. I'm going to temporarily put the back cover back on because I'm going to do a little bit of valve work, and I just want to make sure that none of that stuff falls inside the engine. So this is just temporary. So like I said, this is just temporary to keep anything from falling inside the engine while I work on the valves. So what I'm going to do as part of the tune-up is I'm going to reseat the valves. And so the valve sits inside the cylinder head here. And you can see underneath the valve there is some carbon buildup, or maybe sometimes it's corrosion. And so that makes the seat not sit right. And so then you have either exhaust leaks or intake leaks, and that's not good for the engine. And so I'm going to regrind the seat. I'm going to use this. It's valve grinding compound. I've had it for a long time. Hopefully it still works. And then this is the tool. It's actually made for bigger valves. This is a small engine, so I actually just cut the It's got a suction cup here, and it suctions to the valve head and the valve top, and then that allows you to grind the seat. And so I haven't used it in such a long time. I'm just going to cut it, and we'll make it work for what I've got here. And so the valve grinding compound, it's almost like a toothpaste, but it's got an abrasive inside of it. And what you do is you put some on the. It's been on such a long time. I actually need to kind of open it back up again here. I don't know if that worked actually. Oh, there. Yeah. So it's like a paste, and it's got like a maybe sand or some sort of abrasive inside of it, and then that allows you to kind of sand away the edge of the seat. So I'm going to put a little bit on the valve here. Whoa. Just going to put a little bit on the seat. And you can feel it's got like sand inside or grit inside there. And that's going to help take that seat out or sand the seat down. Okay. So this goes in the spot here. And so then here's the suction cup. Just going to get it wet a little bit, maybe help the suction work better. But ultimately you're going to kind of stick it to the valve. And that allows you to this isn't going to work perfect because it's not really meant for this size valve, but like I said, I just want to do a little bit here. I'm going to clean off. Ideally, I should do a lot more, but I just want to kind of show you what it looks like. I don't know if you can see, but you can see I'm starting to grind some of the carbon buildup off, and I'm starting to make that seat smooth. And so by doing it this way, this seat will match the exhaust port in this case, so that it'll make a better seal. Because it's not really the right size, I'm losing section. So I'm just trying to keep it clean at the top so that I can maintain that section. So I'm changing out the valve grinding paste because as I use it, it kind of it grinds down the grit, so it's not as strong, I guess. And so if I clean it out and put new on, then it works better. But I think that I'm pretty close to done here for what I wanted to do. I'll maybe do one more pass, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So the method that I'm doing here is I'm grinding it, and then I try and lift it, and then turn it maybe 30 degrees, 40 degrees, and then grind again. That way it's an even grind all around, so it's not the same grind every time. Alright, so I don't know if you can see, but there's a nice pretty smooth grind where the seat is, and that's what I want. And so now that if you look at the exhaust port, you can see that it has, the seat is ground nice and smooth. And that seat matches up with the exhaust valve. If you go to the intake port actually looks pretty good already. I'm probably going to do it anyway, just to make sure that I did the job. But I don't think I'll have to do it as badly as the exhaust port needed it. Yeah, so that's pretty good. I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to clean off the seat, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so here are both of the seats. They're ground really nice. I should get really good seal from them. And so I'm going to keep assembling the engine, and the next thing we'll probably have to do is re-clearance the valves, and I'll show you that next. Alright, so I'm going to try and install the valve setup here. This is going to be the intake valve, but the way that this works is that this is the valve cover, and you can see here that you've got the little, I guess they're push rods. I don't know if you can see that, but they're sticking up, and so inside the cam gear pushes them up according to the timing. And so the goal is to put the valve into here, and then use the spring and the keeper here to hold it in place. And so the way that the keeper works is that you can see that it's kind of keyed, and so the valve has a small spot, and so the valve comes into the hole. All right. Hard to do with one hand here. The valve comes into the big opening here, and then in the center it can't, it can't pull through, and so then the spring goes in between here, and the spring puts pressure on the valve to keep it from floating. And so this is a valve spring compressor. It's old and but it still works. It's gonna work, I think, for what we're doing. The valve sits inside the compressor here. Actually, you're gonna adjust it. And so it holds it, and then I'm gonna compress the spring. All right, so now it's compressed. And then I don't know if you can see it, but there's the push rods here. I'm going to rotate the engine. You can see actually that's one. I'm going to rotate it till we're at the bottom of the stroke here for this one. So you can see that the valve spring keeper keeps the spring compressed and holds it in place on the valve. So it's a little bit of a pain to get to work, but I've only got two to do. One last one. All right. So that took a little bit. So now that I have them all installed, I'm gonna check valve clearances. All right, to check valve clearances, I want to put the engine at top dead center, which means that the piston is at the very top, and neither of the valves have any pressure on them from the camshaft. And so to do that, I'm going to rotate the engine, and as you can see, that as I rotate it, you'll see the valves raise, and in this position here, this valve is still up, so I'm going to keep going. You see the intake stroke here. But then once I get to the very top here, you'll see that both of the valves are down completely, and the valve is and the piston's at the very top. So this is top dead center on this engine. I checked the valve clearance specs, and it looks like the intake, the clearance is 8 thousandths, and so I have a feeler gauge here, and I have 8 thousandths for the intake, and then for the exhaust, it's 10 thousandths. I don't know if you can see that. 10,000. So I'm going to do 8 for the intake and 10 for the exhaust. And so I'm at top dead center. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my feeler gauge in between where the valve is and the push rod is, and just see what kind of clearance I have. I didn't grind too much off the seat of the valve, so I don't think it'll be an issue. But we're going to take a look. So the feeler gauge fits in there, and it's just barely touching both the top and the bottom. And so to me, that's good. And then 10 thousandths for the exhaust. And so that's good there too. And so ultimately, if I needed it tighter, I could grind more down here to bring the valve down a tiny bit to make the clearance tighter. Or if I had ground too much and it was too tight, then I could actually take the valve out and grind a little bit off the bottom of the valve to give me that clearance that I needed. But in this case, everything's looking good. So I'm going to work on the next step. All right, so next I'm going to torque on the head. So the spec for this is 140 to 150 inch pounds.